evening, everybody. It is January 23rd, 2019. The Ashland Public Schools will be a model district that embraces the academic and social-emotional growth of all students through a supportive, collaborative, and challenging experience. Our students will develop into lifelong learners who will contribute positively to society. This meeting is being recorded by WACA Cable TV, and our order of business this evening includes our call to order, opening procedures, agenda review and adoption, recognitions and student presentations. I don't believe that we have any this evening. We'll have a moment for a public comment, a Mindess school update, an athletic department update, preschool tuition sliding scale, pay rates, EDP substitutes, and ESP hourly substitutes, the 2019-2020 school calendar update. Our administrative items this evening, if we have any, will be the superintendent's report, the assistant superintendent's report, and the warrant approvals. Consent actions include the approval of minutes, January 9th, 2019, acceptance of gifts and donations, committee reports of activities, member updates, action items, and then we will adjourn. Everybody okay with this agenda as stated?
Yes.
Excellent. So moving forward, seeing as we have no student presentations, I will take a moment to see if there are anybody in the audience that would like to make a public comment. Seeing none, we will move right to Mr. Caira for the Mindess School update. Yeah, all right. Good evening.
Hello, good evening. Thanks for having me. So just a quick update on how things are going at Mindess this year so far. We're about halfway through the school year, as you know, and it's been a wonderful beginning of the year for us. Two major initiatives that I want to talk about today are our responsive classroom rollout, and we also began using a new assessment/intervention tool this year called iReady. So first off, with responsive classroom, as you know, some teachers were trained this summer for Warrant and Mindess, and our teachers have really enjoyed this new, I don't really want to call it a program, but more of a style of teaching and a style of building a community amongst our classrooms. And when you walk into our school now in the morning, you're going to see teachers incorporating morning meeting activities with students to build community and to build a feeling of positivity and a welcome feeling in our classrooms. And it's really resonated throughout the entire school culture. I see that our school disciplinary numbers are down this year, which is fantastic, and I think that definitely has a correlation to a responsive classroom. We have teachers that have said that they feel like they know their classroom and their students better this year than they ever had before, because we're taking the time to have activities in the beginning of the day to get to know one another and to get to know each other. So thank you to Dr. Vieira for helping to bring that program to us this year, and it's been a wonderful addition. Secondly, the iReady assessment and intervention software that we've been incorporating has been a learning curve, and our teachers are working hard to implement that. And these past couple of weeks, we have done our mid-year diagnostics. So during the beginning of the school year, we're having students take a test to get a benchmark of sorts to see where they are in reading and math. And teachers are able to utilize iReady during the week, and those folks recommend that we get about 45 minutes of the program per week for every single student. And that's been one of our challenges, is trying to incorporate that into the weekly structure and the daily structure of our teachers. And we're able to track student progress, because what that program allows the kids to get is skill-based instruction at their exact level, and it's done independently. So they can sit with the computer and have a lesson that has been generated by iReady for the students to take. And it's not in place of teacher instruction. That's still the most important thing in the student's life, but it allows teachers to really focus on some small group instruction, knowing that when they're not with their students directly, they're able to take advantage of this program. And what we've been able to see is some tremendous growth with some of our students. It's interesting right now, we're having conversations with our staff this week in particular about student progress on the mid-year assessment and the mid-year diagnostic, I should say. And I've been especially impressed to see students who have not only reached their year-long goal already, but they've surpassed what iReady calls their stretch goal. And it's great to see the growth. And we're trying to figure out, certain kids who have not made yet the growth that we want them to make. And we're working with the iReady team to see, is there something that we need to improve how we're doing? But basically, we're able to pinpoint exactly where students need help. So it's been a wonderful tool for us. And, like anything, it's new, so we're still getting used to it. But those are the two major things that are happening. And it would be crazy not to just give kudos to our incredible student-led newspaper while I'm here giving an update. Our winter edition was just published for MMN Junior, the Mindess Magic Moments Junior, something that we're incredibly proud of. Mrs. Bro and that group of students go in every Wednesday, and they work so hard. So if you have an opportunity to check out MMN Junior, I suggest that you do so. I'll be sharing it this weekend for everybody to see during my weekly message. So thank you again for taking the time to listen, and happy to answer any questions if you have anything about how the year's gone so far.
Opening it up. Any questions?
No, I've really enjoyed your, is it Call of the Day? that
Yeah.
you do?
Thank you.
love
Oh,
that
that's
on
the best.
On the Twitter, is it Twitter or Instagram?
I use Twitter, so I can't take credit for the idea. It's something
Yeah.
that's really nationally happening.
Yeah.
But the hashtag Good News Call of the Day has been the highlight of my day every day. And kudos to Mrs. Bennett for making sure that we do it. Sometimes
Yeah.
one of us will not be around, and she's just so great at making sure that it happens every day. And the kids and the parents and the faces. And today was one of those special ones where the child came down, wasn't really sure why he was in my office, and I told him why, and his face lit up. And it was just it's been a wonderful thing. And it's been great for us to be able to contact parents for a positive conversation every single day so far this year. So our goal is to not miss a day. So far, so good.
Amazing.
Mike, I would just sort of share with you the feedback that I've seen in the iReady as a parent, having a child in Mindess. And I know when my wife and I sat down with our child's teachers and we were talking at the conferences, they really were into the iReady program. They were really kind of excited by it. And I think I shared this with you privately, but I want to share it, sort of with the community as well, that the level of engagement in that program seems really high. Mr. Adams.
Yeah, it's my
There he
son
goes
wants to
again.
show me his band concert.
It sounds like FaceTime, too. I
It
think.
was.
Yeah.
We're going to have a concert. That's the student presentation for this evening.
Does he get like a demotion or a
Yeah.
demerit or something like that?
My son's gonna get it.
Well.
See him.
Turn the volume off.
Mute it.
Sorry.
So, that was going to be a really nice thing for you, Mike, to share. And, no, in all seriousness, I mean, the fact that teachers are really using it the way it's intended, that they seem engaged by it, was really exciting to see. And I know from just talking to my daughter that is an active part of her day. The morning meeting kind of thing is something that she seems to really enjoy. And I think the sense that it's building the community, which is, I think the strength of our community is really its biggest asset, and I think just tapping into that and supporting that is great. So, congratulations for the implementation. I'm sure you do have some bugs you're working out on and all that, and getting everybody up to speed. But just from what I've seen, it seems to be really well received and effective in helping target need areas for kids.
Thanks. It's special for me this year, too, because I get to look at it from a parental side as well. Having just moved to Ashland, so I get to see my own daughter's progress. And it was great to have a conversation with her as a parent and say, hey, look, this is what you've done. So we can share that information with parents, too, which is great. So I think that's important conversations to have, and kids can actually see their real-time progress.
Yeah.
And I know teachers are sharing that with the kids, so it's great.
Well, that's what I was going to say, that I think is one of the real positives that I'm seeing at home, is that, he'll come home and he'll be like, Mom, I improved X percent,
Yeah.
like, from last time, and it's sort of,
Gee, mine never says that.
I could make a dig, but he's like here, so I can't. But just that this is the generation of instantaneous feedback. And for them to have that and to have those sort of metrics and have it be in a technology base rather than, just a paper with a mark on it, I think is really good, especially I think it's hard for these kids when they sit down and they take the MCAS and we don't get those papers for months. And sort of have that instantaneous feedback is really good.
And it sounds like it's in all grades and across both programs?
Yeah, 3 through 5. Every single classroom is utilizing it. And like I said, it's something that we're starting to hit our stride in using it most effectively. And, we have ways to go, but we're having great conversations around how to make sure we're incorporating it into our everyday structure for reading and math.
And then the responsive classroom, is it about the morning meeting, or is it more of a philosophy that's like woven throughout the day?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a philosophy that's woven throughout the day, but there are really some important elements to it. And the most important elements right now that we have asked every teacher to try to incorporate are mainly morning meeting. So there are components, and it's about an entire philosophy, but knowing that only a dozen or so of our teachers have been trained in it, we've asked those teachers to sort of spearhead it, and they've taught everyone the principles of morning meeting. So this summer, when the rest of our school gets trained, or hopefully the majority of our classroom teachers are trained, we'll be able to fully adopt all of the different principles of responsive classroom. But right now, morning meeting has been the biggest thing we've done. And I know that time is precious here, but to acknowledge the work that our specialists have done in that area as well has been tremendous. They've gone above and beyond and formed their own little book group to learn about responsive classroom. They were not trained. They're not classroom teachers, but they've been asked to incorporate some morning meeting during a special block that we have, which allows teachers to have their common planning time. And they've decided to read a book themselves and talk about it with each other and discuss it. And they've just gone way above and beyond what I ever would have expected of them in terms of adopting this. And it's been really special to see.
Oh, that's fantastic. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thanks.
Sounds like things are going really well over there.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, athletic department update, Mr. Marks.
It's on here, yeah.
All right, well,
Welcome.
Because they didn't get it completely, Steve.
what's that?
The PowerPoint until just barely.
That's fine, yeah. All right, first of all, thank you very much for having me. I want to start off by saying just thank you and how honored I am to be here, not only just to get an opportunity to speak to you guys here in this environment, but also for welcoming me and my family to this community this year. And I've been able to look at this from a couple different lenses. Number one, in terms of my job as the athletic director. Number two, as a resident of Ashland. And third, as a parent with two boys under 2 that will eventually be coming through the Ashland School District. So being able to be a part of this and work with you all has been fantastic. So want to start off by thanking you. I do have a presentation here that I'll kind of, skim through, but really what I've been asked to do is give you an update on sort of where we are as an athletic department as it pertains to the athletic audit that was done. What I can say is, as a department, what we've really been working on, the language that I've been trying to use is, people could keep saying, you should try and build a culture, or try, what kind of culture you're gonna build. I wanna be very clear that what we're trying to do as an athletic department and district is enhance a culture. I think to say to build it from nothing means there's already a strong culture, and people want athletics and the entire district to be doing really well. So I'm very clear with the coaches, with the students and everything, that we're not necessarily building, we want to enhance our culture. And that leads directly into this audit that was done, because what that did for me as an athletic director, for us as a district, it created a roadmap, right? So to come on in and already have a list of things that I know that we do well as a department, and things that we can work on, has been a really, really big help for me and the department. So everybody has seen the audit and gone through it, so I don't know necessarily if I need to go through the slides. This presentation is something that I'll be sharing with my athletic department, my coaches, as well as the Athletic Advisory Committee that I'll talk about later on in my presentation. So, goes through all the 5, standards of the audit and everything here, what there was. But really what I want to focus on is this last slide, and this is what we are doing, not necessarily what I'm doing, but we are doing as an athletic department, and a timeline that I have created that will adjust as we go, but a good place really for us to start as a district. I don't know how well you can see it right there, but in a lot of the, what's up?
And we have copies also.
Oh, good, great, perfect. So in the, really in the areas where, it was sort of suggestions, okay, I believe is the language that they use, suggestions that we should be looking at within the athletic department. I was able to, kind of map things out in a 3-year plan and say when I would start to implement some things. Some things might be, implementing the first year and reinforcing a second year, and tried to map it out so that we were hitting all of the things that were recommended in the audit. So the things that we've started on year 1, which is, I think, perfect to start on, the mission statement. So things that we've done with the mission statement is we've tried to make it much more visible. It's been, it hangs up on my office door, it hangs up, around school. Whether people notice it or not, it's up and more visible, as well as all my coaches' meetings with the coaches. We start off with the mission statement. In the meetings that I have with the athletic department, we start off with the mission statement. We put it up there so that everybody, sees it. We talk about it, keeping that in mind with everything that we do. The next one that we hit on year 1 was, or that we are going to hit on, is the athletic handbook. Over the summer, right before I started, I did make a few edits, but once the athletic advisory committee launches, which I'll talk about, but it's gonna launch in a few weeks, that's one of the first things that we're gonna tackle, is looking at the athletic handbook and the policies and the procedures and what we do well and what we might need to adjust or what we might need to add. So that was another thing we could do right away. Athletic achievement. We've been keeping really good records of what our student athletes have been doing and where they've been recognized, okay? So whether that's within the league or the state or whatever it might be, and publicizing that, both using social media or my newsletters that go out once a month, just making sure that we're keeping track of the achievements that both individuals do as well as our teams. MIAA coaches certification. So I've been working with the MIAA in terms of, and this is something that I'm starting the conversations this year, but we'll move more towards next year, is instituting that, because it is a requirement by the MIAA for coaches to be certified through them. So we're talking about, when we can get those classes for the coaches, how we can get them, and how we can quickly get them certified and in compliance with that MIAA requirement. The Clocker Club, I have had a number of meetings with them. We meet once a month as the Clocker Club, and then I also meet with the board separately, trying to get everything in order, get some things in writing and their policies in place. But I think the biggest shift that we've done there is not a dollar that goes in or out that I am not seeing or approving. And that's been a big change as to before, where, not in a bad way, but, coaches could request money and they would get it. So this way, I just have to approve everything, and it goes that way, just to hold accountable. Yeah.
Can I just ask for my benefit, is the
Sure.
Clocker Club organized as a outside entity, or is it really a part of the school department?
It's an outside entity.
It is,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, so it's our booster club.
Separate,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, when we set it up, well, it was 10 years ago, we set it up, and.
But it's
set
just
it
like
up
a
as
separate
501c3
foundation, like
as
the
a separate-
AFI? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. In terms of facilities, one of the big things is just communication. So I've been having meetings with DPW, with our facilities teams, to make sure that we're all on the same page in terms of what needs to be done, in the future, what we need to get done, as well as, honestly, a lot of what we've been doing is maintaining what we have, trying to figure out what we need to do to maintain. And one of the biggest Pluses on the facility side is we were able to, thankfully add a position this year, a full-time position. We hired an athletic groundskeeper, so we have a dedicated person for facilities that just works for athletics. So that's been a huge help, both with that communication and in terms of being able to get things done on that side. Uniform inventory, we started this summer, started digging through the closets of all the old uniforms and figuring out what we're missing, what is still there, and we started that, and then over February vacation, I've got some students coming in for community service that are gonna help us really nail down the inventory moving forward. Support, that was one of the recommendations. Again, I just mentioned, hiring Adam Troy, who's our athletic groundskeeper. That's been just a major bonus for us as an athletic department and as a district as a whole. So that was a great hire. In terms of working with the captains, there's a lot of talk right now within our league, the Tri-Valley League, about doing some captains workshops where there's common language and common seminars and things like that, where we do something big with all of the schools together, and then each school being able to do their own versions of what they want to do with captains councils or things like that. So this is sort of I look at this as almost a 2-year thing, starting it this year and then really putting it into play next year. Uniform cycle, one of the things that was needed or still is needed is to figure out when teams will buy new uniforms, and with the help of the support team that I do have at school, we were able to figure out when uniforms were purchased last, digging through invoices from years and years, and I have been able to already create a cycle where at this point every 4th year varsity teams will get new uniforms, and then the varsity uniforms will get passed down to the JV teams and so on, which in the long run will save us money, and when our inventory is done, we'll be much more organized in terms of that. So in terms of emergency action plan, that was on the audit there. I've been talking to Ed Berman. There is an emergency action plan created for athletics, and we're going off that this year, but we want to expand that for next year in terms of site-specific ones, especially because we do rent facilities all over place, and we're different places, so we want to make sure that at each location, everybody knows exactly what needs to happen if we need to go there. So we're working on that, so that will be, again, another 2-year thing. Athletic Advisory Committee, very excited about this. A lot of policies, procedures will be talked about. This committee will be made up of administrators, it'll be made up of parents, it'll be made up of coaches, it'll be made up of students, and the athletic department, members of the athletic department. So there'll be at least 1, possibly 2 members of the Booster Club also on there, so that we can look at policies, we can look at procedures, and I can get it's a good way for me to get feedback from different constituents to be able to make decisions moving forward in terms of if we need to shift something, or if something's really working well, how can we enhance that? So really excited. That's going to launch next week. Coaches evaluations, that's something I implemented right away. That needed to be done, and this fall every single varsity coach sat down and had an evaluation with me at the end of the season. The way that we sort of have run it this year is varsity coaches sit down, have that conversation with me, sub-varsity coaches have conversations with the varsity coach, and then the varsity coach will report back to me in terms of what was going on, what is going on, and things like that. But got really good feedback, had really good conversations with the coaches more than anything. Parent feedback, I did send out a survey for the fall season last week, and I've gotten a number of responses back. We're looking forward to doing that again in the winter, and that will be online moving forward. And lastly, the annual report. So myself and my athletic team at the school, we've been gathering information, data, all sorts of things. So at the end of the school year, we can give a very detailed report about what happened throughout the entire year and where we plan to move going forward. So That's a brief synopsis of what we've been doing in the athletic department. And, you know, again, I can't say enough, as a new athletic director, to have this document and for the district to have invested to do this process I won't say it makes my job easier, but it gives us a direction to go in, and that is so important. That is so important for this department moving forward. So, thank you again for your time. Happy to answer any questions that anybody might have.
Opening it up for questions. Anybody?
So, Stephen, one of the things that came out of that report, and I know it's one of the things Jim's big on, is ensuring that the athletics is an extension of our district and the school day, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you have many coaches that aren't, you know, some of the coaches are obviously staff members and faculty, but you have many that aren't as well, and so they're not as familiar with our district and culture and the blueprint and our district mission statement and things like that. So how are you addressing that challenge of making sure that they're aware of all the different things that we have in the district, and to make sure that they're able to do what's expected of them to extend that day and all those values and principles?
Sure, that's a really good question. That's something that we're talking about and thinking about, and constantly is going to be a challenge. But that's something that really I, as the athletic director, and us as a district, need to make sure that when we do hire coaches, or if there are coaches that have already been hired and are working already with the teams, that we have an orientation where we can really sit down with them, more than the coaches meeting where they're all together at once, where I can, you know, lay things out, but really talk to them about what it means to coach, but coach here in Ashland with what we stand for, not as just an athletic department, but what we stand for as a district. And we've already had some good conversations with Mr. Adams and myself and Ms. St. Cyr in terms of, you know, trying to pull all of that together. So it's certainly something that's on our mind, and something that we're looking forward to being able to offer more professional development, so to speak, to the coaches that do come from outside of district.
Yeah.
So
and is
that's
there
very
anything
important.
that we can do, whether it's Jim's office or us as a committee, because I mean most of the stuff like the blueprint, that's you know, kind of, you know, with the lens of our district in our walls and our system.
Yeah.
And when it wasn't necessarily done with the idea that, hey, we're going to have these, you know, transient people come in and help do those things. So, you know, as you go through that, let us know if there's anything that we can do to support that, whether it's take parts, you know, Jim has a group going through the blueprint now. Is there, you know, a way to modify it, make a portion that can be put in collateral or to help do that? I don't think should be beholden on just the athletic department to say, hey, I have these coaches that fall into that category of they're not within our district aside from coaching, and it shouldn't be just beholden on you to have to make that that collateral and that development. I think you know, that should fall on the district as a whole to help support that.
Sure, I agree, and it has been thus far. All the conversations have been really positive, and I think the one thing that we can do both ways is use common language. Okay, so when, you know, something comes out from Mr. Adams that's going out to the district, and when I'm relaying it to my coaches, even if it's sports specific, that some of the language is the same. Okay, that will just kind of connect everything. I think that to start, just being able to communicate that way is big. But if there's anything that comes up as you know, starting this process, I will certainly reach back out. But I think just reinforcing that and giving feedback when and if necessary.
Just is a little different than the sort of the plan you're laying out, but just curious whether there's sufficient interest in the student body to expand the sports that we're offering, the athletic activities that we're offering, and whether you have anything in your mind about the expansion of programs that you might be coming to us on the next year or 2 or 3?
Sure. Yeah, there's some interest. You know, I get students all the time that stop by my office and want to start a certain sport or a certain club or something like that. But to be honest, right now, spending a lot of time on the financial sustainability of our district as well as this program, and the work that needs to be done to put real numbers to what it costs to run this athletic program as is without making any additions to it. At the current time, I don't think that we could take anything else on, because we need to figure out really what it costs us in real time to run the program that we do now. Okay, so anything extra right now would be challenging. Certainly open to hearing about it. This year we added alpine ski, came as you guys know. I believe somebody came and presented to this committee, and we took that on as a sport. So certainly open to it. There hasn't been too much, but kids do come by and every now and then say, hey, Mr. Marks, I'd like to start this team. So that's where I am right now.
Boys volleyball has been something I've heard tossed
Yep.
around.
Yep.
Just as one of those. I do have a question
Sure.
about the captain's workshop.
Yes.
Is there a layout or a plan for that workshop? Is it something that has already been created, or like by the league or by the school, or is it something that would have to be written up?
No, so we are in the process, all the Tri-Valley League athletic directors are in the process of putting it together right now. We're hoping to do something in the spring to get
Yeah.
everybody together.
I think that's a fantastic
Yep.
thing. I'm a prospective captain this year for softball,
I know,
and
yep.
I think that I would greatly benefit from that, because I don't know, it's something that you kind of have to figure out, but if there's a basis and a foundation for it, I think that that would help expand our sports and
Yep.
the relationships between captains, coaches, players.
Yep.
much
And I think
better.
that's great, thank you. I think what's very important about that is what happens within the league, because our league, we work so closely together. We wanted to have, or we want to try and create something that is common, with then giving each school the option to go back and run your captain's councils at school with your own sort of, vibe to it, so to speak. So those are things that certainly will be coming. Thank you.
Anybody else? Does it feel like you've been here forever?
Just getting started.
It's only been a
Just
few
getting
months.
started.
Where are you headed to tonight?
Yeah.
Right back to school to a
Right
game.
over to
Yep.
swimming or to event? at
Right back to
school?
Yeah.
basketball.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly.
Yeah.
Long
So,
days,
Yep,
long nights.
yep, that's okay.
Well, thank you for all you're doing.
Can I just have one
Yeah.
quick, sorry.
Yes.
You went over the coaches evaluation?
Yes.
What is that? Is that once in the season you meet with the coaches, or
So
when do you do that?
Season, I think.
at the end of the season, I do a formal
Thanks.
evaluation, but there's nothing in an evaluation that a coach and I have not talked about throughout the
Yeah.
season.
Yeah.
If there's something that needs to be addressed,
Mhm.
the first time they're hearing it is not in that evaluation. So
Okay.
there's constant communication, but this is just more formal. I have
Yeah.
them sign it, I sign it, I put it in a folder, I give them a copy. It's just something that we have on file. It's more of a conversation,
Sure.
and it's worked out really well. It's
And
worked
then
out
they
really well.
talk to their sub-varsity
Yes.
coaches.
Yes.
That's good.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Any other questions?
Thanks, Steve.
Okay,
Thank you
thank you
very
guys,
much.
thank you very much for having me.
Have a good night.
Have a
You
good
too.
night.
Next, Mr. Adams, preschool tuition.
Let me do that.
Part of our job is IT as well.
Yeah.
So, last week, or last meeting, when we had the conversation with regard to the preschool and the adjustment of the days between 4 and 5 day options would be the norm, the new norm moving forward. We did have a conversation about the financial impact it could have on families. And so what I've done is I went back to look at the process that other districts use with preschool, and the sliding scales, if you will, in terms of based on income level and potential reduction of the fees it would cost for preschool. And what you have before you is the table that is actually produced by the Department of Education, the EEC, the Early Education and Care Department. And this is the same chart, it's been updated. It's the same chart that we used at the kindergarten level. So when we had tuition paying students for kindergarten. It has been modified. It was modified in 2018. The one we used before was 2016. So it has been adjusted, but this reflects the adjustment. So what you'll notice is, based on family size and income, the green sheets you have in front of you, the green headings. And then the second page is really what you really want to look at. It shows if a family meets one of those qualifications, how it impacts the actual tuition, what their tuition would look like. So for instance,
make sure I'm looking.
Yep.
Is that the page that Karen sent over as a follow-up, the second one?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just had that up a second ago.
Yeah, so it'll say up top, preschool tuition sliding scale. And it shows what the annual tuition is. So for instance, if a 3-year-old half-day, Monday through Thursday, the 4-day option, it's $3,520 is the annual tuition. If they fall within that 50% category, they pay $1,760 for preschool, and so on and so forth. I think, I certainly would recommend that we adopt this. When we go back and look at the kindergarten, and when we had the sliding scale for kindergarten, the last time we did it was 22 students, correct, Aaron? We had 22 families, or 22 students that were impacted.
And what's that, about 10%? Not quite?
Well, it's under 10% now.
Yeah.
Then it was 10%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we have 230 students now.
Mm-hmm.
But that being said, we only typically have 120 students total in the preschool.
Okay.
That's if we're maxed out, it's 127 in years past. But that being said, I think that was one of the the conversations that was had within the community too, would there be an option? And I think it's appropriate that we offer this option and to utilize the state's recommendation.
Jim, across the top it says family of 2,
Yeah.
family of 3. That's total,
Yes,
or not just the children? They're talking about the total.
correct.
Okay,
Right.
thanks.
And I assume there was additional cells that just didn't fit on the page. One of them goes to 9, the other one goes
Yeah,
to 6.
right, yeah, Barbara just, yeah, so if you go back a sheet to the green headings, it goes out further, right? We don't have many families of 9. I know we do have families of 6 and 7, so, but yes, we would just expand it as it goes on.
And are the 4 options that are shown?
Yeah.
The 3-year-old half-day, 4-year-old half-day?
Yep.
Well, first one Monday through Thursday, Monday through Friday. These are the totality of the options that we're looking at right now.
That is correct.
Depending on how things shake out, I think you've said
Yep.
you would look at potentially a 3-day option or something like that
So what we said was,
down the road.
right, what we said was we would look at registrations, and we would look at demand. What we talked about as well was, when we removed one of the classes, that was a full-day classroom, that we didn't have enough students within that full-day classroom to actually financially run that classroom, that if there's more requests for the service, we feel like we need to come back to you, then we will. But the registration process, we want to let unfold first, and that starts tomorrow.
Oh,
And
starts
so-
tomorrow, okay.
Right.
Tonight there's open house for new families. Sarah's been meeting the last 2 days with existing families.
So I assume then if we get to that,
Yep.
we would have to look at an amendment to adjust the rates or create a rate structure.
Correct.
Okay.
Right. And again, what we want to be careful of is the way it's designed, as if you went to a 3-day scenario, it's not going to be Monday, Wednesday, Friday. That's what needs to be clear, is that Friday is still being set aside as the IEP meeting days, the team meetings. So it would have to be some other mixture of days, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, only because of that Friday scenario. So for instance, Hopkinton runs theirs Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. They have 4 days, and Wednesdays are always the day there's no school. That's where their team meetings are. But ours is designed this way for Fridays, helps with the team meetings, but also helps with service delivery for other classrooms.
There's so many Monday holidays, I would think Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Yeah, whatever. I mean, we'll have to play that by ear, if it's even needed. I think, like I said, I think part of it is, letting the registration process unfold first, which by February break, we'll have a much deeper understanding as to where we stand with regard to enrollment.
So what's your assessment of the sliding scale tuition? It's just the financial impact compared to the models that you and Sarah were running before, and our ability to
That was
build
my
out
question.
the program.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I mean, Barbara and I are certainly concerned. We don't know how many families will qualify. What we've asked families to do is, in the process, indicate if they're going to be considering looking for financial assistance. The reason why I wanted to bring this tonight was we want to be able to publicize it and publish it with
Right, so
the
folks can look
documents.
at it and
Yeah,
know
I think,
where they
Mark,
fall.
the number of families that this potentially could impact, because honestly, I mean, if you look at it, on the EEC, and it's not a tremendously high threshold, right, in terms of the overall income. I don't know how many families will qualify, but it's a starting place for us, and it's the document that is recommended by the Department of Ed.
Right.
So, in terms of that salary structure.
I guess I'm just confused on one point. You said the 3-day option you're not going to really talk about until you've seen the registrations, but it's not an option on the registration
Not
form.
at all. Nope.
So I'm just thinking about how everything is gonna.
Yeah, we're not looking for families to write in, we want a 3-day option.
No, I know.
Right.
But we've told families it's not gonna exist, and families are sent scrambling to figure out childcare. But then there's a potential we could open it back up. That doesn't.
All we said was that based on registration, so for instance, if we're looking at the registration that comes in, and we don't have the number of students that are required to meet the financial obligation of running the programs, do we have to come back and look at a different option, which is potentially a 3-day? All we said was that when we had the meeting here, that was a potential conversation. It's not one we're looking to have. I'm just saying we didn't close any of the doors. We also didn't close the doors to adding another full-time classroom. Because if we have enough students, because we've had that happen as well. We've had more, what people didn't look at was, we had a lot of those families who were getting in 2 and 3 days who wanted 5 days. And we didn't have space for them.
That was what was filling up. The 2 and 3
Right.
days had plenty of space, and to the point where
Families-
we had,
We were just placing
situations
them
where-
because that's all they had,
yeah.
so.
We had teachers in there with only a handful of students sometimes. So.
I think where we are, I mean, again, I just want to be clear, these are the options we're giving. And should, we have an opportunity and need to come back, we did leave that door open in the conversation. So. But this was really one of the keys, right? It was, how do we offset some of the potential costs of a family who was planning on a 3-day and moving to a 4-day, or 2 moving to a 3 moving to a 5? There was an increase in cost.
So maybe it would be helpful to me, and maybe it's already in here somewhere, but as compared to costs for either 4 or 5-day programs this year, without the sliding scale, right? Because we don't have a sliding scale in place for this current year. How much of a reduction does this really generate? Is our current rate the 10,720, and then so if we're looking at the 4-year-old full day, Monday to Friday.
Yep.
It shows as 10,720 annual tuition.
Yep.
I guess the question is really, are those numbers sort of the current numbers, or we
added a
2%?
2%.
Right? Okay.
Right.
So they're close.
It's very
Okay.
close.
And remember, the sliding scale is a percentage of the tuition you're paying, so the percentage would overlay with current, you could do the math, right?
Yeah, I wasn't processing it yet. But
it's nominal, right? it's, and again, I don't know how many will qualify, but I felt like moving to this option of the 4 days and the 5 days, that I felt it was appropriate that we at least provide that opportunity for families. We don't know what the potential implications will be, because we don't know how many families will qualify, because we didn't offer it, Mark, in the past, right?
Yeah.
So we just know, I can go based on what I know, what we had in kindergarten, which was 22 families.
Yeah, I mean, what I'm looking at here is if we were to say the full day
Yep.
tuition is 10,720 and half is 5,360, what I'm trying to do in my head is, what's that 5,360 equate to for somebody who is looking for a 3-day option under the current schedule?
I see what you're saying.
So that the folks could look at and say, well, geez, this year I'm paying 5,360
right.
for 3 days.
I see what you're saying.
Next year I'm getting 5 days
I don't
for the
have
same
that in
price,
front of me.
or something like that. Just to
Good question. I don't have that in front of me.
Okay.
Well, but it, I believe, and Jim, correct, the rates, both current and the future rates, are per day rates,
Correct.
right? So you could do that math easily, like, so if you're paying,
Yep.
50%, you're getting you're paying for 2.5 days, basically, and so, so you could do that, you could do it at a gross
so
level
you're-
like that.
Yeah, and that's what I'm thinking as well, which to me says that really, where, look, some people provide feedback that says, how are we gonna afford this? If what we're really doing is saying, granted, it doesn't quite work for the 2-day option, but if you're on the 3-day option now, and you wanna continue next year, and finances put you in these qualifying brackets, you might actually end up with greater services for the same amount of money.
Right.
I think.
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
and that's why I was just trying to
yeah,
make sure that
Right.
thought
If-
process.
if
For
you
somebody who
fall into
falls into
those
that,
categories.
it would actually, if it's a nominal change, if any at all, it's actually an enormous benefit for them. Now,
Could be.
Yeah,
now
could be.
they choose the days, even if they want to send their kid there for 3 days, you choose the 3 days, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to it's only these days, and if something doesn't align with whatever your schedule is. So.
Yeah, I was thinking through all that. I just want to make sure the numbers really came out that way.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, and I should have anticipated that in terms of what our current cost is. We had it broken out because there were so many options.
Right.
And it
Right.
varied.
Yeah, and you've got the multiple tiers in
Right.
terms of sliding scale.
Yeah, so
Right.
I think figuring that out is probably better at a gross, looking at it per day.
Right.
And then breaking it out like that,
So-
and then you'll be able to compare that way as opposed to trying to.
I'm just trying to
use
think about it
dollars
as if I'm one of the 5 people at home watching this and this is of interest to me,
Right.
or I'm
You're
reading it on our website or what have you, for them it's pretty easy because they know what they pay.
Yeah.
And so I'm just looking at it more in the abstract, but it
Right.
seems to me that this should do exactly what you said, which is provide greater coverage for potentially a lesser cost. Again, for those who qualify based
Yeah,
on income levels.
exactly.
So again, that's just the recommendation, to approve this, and again, I still think it is something that we can revisit over time. But I did wanna get something out there for Sarah to be able to utilize, with the registration process coming up, beginning tomorrow.
Have we gone through like any of the scenarios, like, let's say there are approximately 10% of families that do it, does it work out financially? What we expect to come in?
Yeah,
and what we expect to go out cost-wise?
Yeah, Barbara feels comfortable with it. I had her run some numbers just to say, okay, what happens if? And because of again, we removed one classroom and an aide as well, so that expense is going away, as well, so.
So some costs have been reduced.
Correct. And again, I don't know how many will qualify, but I just felt obligated that, based on the conversations I heard within the community after the vote, was that there was an
Sure.
interest in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think, philosophically, absolutely, just want to make sure you don't say later, oh,
Well,
we didn't know how many people were going to qualify, and now we've got an
Right.
issue on the other side.
so it's pretty consistent for many districts to actually have this. Now, again, we're talking about many districts that their total preschool cost is $100. In a lot of the cities, they're not charging significantly because all of those They're truly integrated preschools where all of the funds have been over time absorbed within the operating budget. And that's what we're slowly doing, right? This is the process of pulling the entire operating, of preschool into the operating budget. Ideally, it'd be great not to have a charge for preschool, just like kindergarten.
So how does, sorry, Kath,
No, no, no.
So what, I guess the only question I have, Jim, is
Yep.
how is this information gonna be disseminated to make sure that we're getting it to the people who, have been raising concerns
Yeah,
about
no,
it?
it's gonna be posted online. It'll be posted tomorrow online. It'll be emailed out to the community as well, to the preschool people who've signed up for the email. We'll get that as well. And Sarah's,
Sorry, go ahead.
and Sarah's just, has been talking it up in her meetings. So she mentioned yesterday and today with the parent open house copies that, hey, school committee's gonna be voting on something. We hope to have something in writing by tomorrow when we start the registration process. It'll be posted front and center because you have to go to the website
Yep.
to actually look at the
Register for
registration.
anything, yeah.
Right.
So
it
Mark,
would be
to
there.
your question,
Yeah.
a 2 full day student was $4,150 for the year.
Okay. Do you have 3-day on there?
3-day was 6,100.
Okay, that's the number, yeah.
Well, right, this is the current rate though, it's if you increase it. $6,190.
Yeah,
So-
so for a 50% 4-year-old
Is the saving,
Right.
would
savings
actually
for 5
we see
days?
savings.
You're actually saving,
Yeah.
right.
Right,
Okay, so that confirms what I was thinking, and,
Yeah.
yeah, thank you.
yeah, excellent.
Do we have, because we have gotten a lot of feedback on this, do we have a list of people that have, specifically reached out to express their concern about this, that we can, get an email off to, or, sort of send this information to, so that they can consider this option?
Well,
you know?
yeah, I mean, do I have a list? The answer is no.
Okay.
I've received one email, personally.
Well, I
Lori-
did
Lori
receive
has
a couple
received a few, but
about
Sarah
the
also
finances.
received those.
Yeah.
And-
But I would hesitate to do that because those are people that did reach out to us, but then we're providing information directly to only a few people.
Well, I'm saying in addition to all the other things.
Yeah,
Because I think this is a response.
They,
It's an appropriate step to take anyway, but I think it's also something that you've gone and looked at because of some of the feedback. And I think for people who may be most frustrated and then are going off looking for other options and are discounting this possibility, I want to make sure those people have specific knowledge of this option.
so
That's
I
what I'm
think the
concerned about.
email
that goes to the
that goes to the
community.
community should suffice.
Okay,
Those are individuals who responded to emails and have signed up through those emails. I mean, you're welcome to post it on Facebook and do whatever you want to do with that, but I don't, as you know, have access to it. But certainly I think it's appropriate that as school committee members you do. And say, this was a conversation. I think there was more communication there than there was through email, to be
Yeah.
honest.
And I can post it once,
Yeah.
once it's online, I'll
Yeah.
just file a link to
Yeah.
it.
all right, good enough. All right, I won't belabor the point any further.
I think it's appropriate.
Are you looking for a motion, ma'am?
Yes,
So,
yes, sir.
Hey, Mark, why don't we, because the sliding scale goes beyond what we've been, what's on like the sheet here. So for instance, this one only goes up to 6 families.
Shows
but-
6.
So, I would think we should do a motion to approve a sliding scale that aligns with the EEC guidance for preschool for 2019, 2020, would be the motion. So that way, it's,
Got it.
because we're adopting their guidance, right?
So what we're gonna do is I'll have Barbara, because this came from Barbara, is we'll put an example, like, it'll just be on the second sheet. So the guiding document is this from EEC.
Okay.
But the backup of what it might look like, and that's all we were trying to do, is provide families with what it would look like. This is an example. If you have further questions, obviously contact the business department.
So do we need to vote I understand your point, I agree with you, Paul. Do we need to vote
Just,
the
The actual
actual
numbers.
numbers?
just this, the sliding scale.
Well, I guess this,
But that doesn't tell us what rate we're doing. It doesn't tell us whether we're giving 100% discount to anybody who is,
On the side, it shows, those are what the discounts are, 50%, 85%, 100%. Is what you pay. And all we're doing is, on the backside, is just showing, on the second sheet, is what an
At the
example
end of
looks
that.
like.
Well, so maybe that's misleading. The heading above that is the percent of state median income. And that's saying
Correct.
50% state median income, not the amount of tuition.
right. I think we need to vote the tuition
The,
figures.
the one that doesn't have any color says tuition amount 0, 50%, 85%, 100%.
And that's what, right, of the
On the
state
green
median
one,
income.
this is saying that you're at the 50% of the state median income.
And that's what they utilize, it's 50%. If you're at the state 50%, it's 50% reduction.
Okay, but it's.
But that's how, right.
One makes it clear that the percentage is talking about how much tuition you're paying.
Understood, and that's why we gave the example.
So I think, was that what was confusing to you as well, Mark, is that?
Yeah, so I think what we're ultimately voting is to approve the sliding scale tuition amount as shown on the second page with the dollar figures in it, using the corresponding DESI calculations based on family size and percent of state income, which would, so I think what's potentially, so we wouldn't need to have that bottom chart fleshed out further because of there are 7, 8, 9, 10 family members, right? That's all gonna correlate to the chart.
Correct.
So that if you have, let's take one that's not on there, and if those folks fall, say, in the 85th percentile state median income,
134%.
right, so they're gonna be in the column, depending on what program they have the child in the third, or the second from right column for each of those levels. So I think what we're approving is the rates based on the tuition sliding scale
Yeah,
recommendation
what I'm
for
not
the
getting at,
preschoolers.
so the green doesn't make any sense. Because if it's the tuition, right, then all the numbers go on the 50% line going across
Mm-hmm.
should be the exact same.
Not for the family size.
No, based on the family, so the family
If it's
size.
a family of two, the annual income was $38,697.
So I'm talking about the one that's more confusing, the green one that you said is the reference one.
I'm looking at the green one.
It doesn't have any income.
Family of two, annual is $38,697.
Did you give a different?
Yeah, so I think, Jim, what,
Oh, this is the annual
this
income,
chart.
okay.
Yeah, he's
Right.
referring to,
the bottom part of the chart that says, sort of what you're referring to as the backside, the sliding scale tuition amount, that's what we're setting, right? That's what we're saying, this is what people are gonna pay.
correct.
And to the extent that this is driven by family size,
Correct.
we need to indicate that so that for family sizes that aren't reflected on this particular page.
There are a
families up
couple
to
that are not,
6.
right, we only showed up to 6 families.
Right, but we don't need to change that, because that's not gonna change the amount of tuition people pay. It's just gonna be used for the eligibility criteria.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
So if that's, I think, the point that Paul and I were trying to get to, and I think Lori said too, that what we're fixing are the dollar figures and the percentages, not, and then we can use as a reference tool for application purposes,
Correct.
DESI's guidelines.
If you fall within the, correct, those are the
Right.
3 areas, or the 4 areas, 0, 50, 85, and 100.
Right,
So the
So-
motion,
yeah, so,
I see what you're saying, Mark.
Yeah.
But, right, so
So-
when Erin used
Yeah.
to, she used this sheet, I mean, that's what she would have used.
yeah,
So when the family files the paperwork, and we have to then create a form for them to fill out and provide evidence of meeting the income qualification, she would then go to the sheet, okay, it's a family of 8,
right,
they make X, it's 50% reduction.
right. So
Right.
that's the back page to me.
Well, right, to me, it's the front as a,
You accountants
As
all
an
look,
accountant.
you account look at it.
that's
So-
what I look at first.
So Paul, if the motion, I won't make it yet, but
Yeah.
if the motion is to approve the sliding scale tuition amount to be paid by families as presented, That adopts the chart.
That adopts the green one, and the other one is the example, right?
I don't know what color you're looking at.
No,
Yeah.
Paul, it adopts the,
The bottom
The-
part there, on this page.
That's not what he said. He said the green one is the reference one that we're adopting.
That's the reference. That's the chart.
That's the one people
that-
should look
that
at.
shows the income qualification.
So if I were to detail it and flesh it out more than we would in a motion, I would say the motion would be to set the sliding scale tuition amounts as follows: 3-year-old half-day, Monday through Thursday, annual tuition 50%, 8,500. You go through the whole thing. I don't think we can do that. But that's what I think we're voting on is, what are those dollar figures? Right, Nicole?
Right, but
Right.
Eyes
again,
glassed over, I just said.
if the non-colored sheet is what we're voting on, then we need to add the language I said, because it doesn't have anything for a seven-member family, 8-member family, where the other one does.
I think we're adopting the bottom half of that page.
Yeah.
Not the reference tool at the top.
We were just giving you an example. Up top.
So you're saying you don't really need this.
But we
because
need,
they
but
can
we
reference
we need to,
This
we
is
need to
what
vote
we're-
on how that's adopted,
Right, so let me try.
right?
Right, let me try.
Let's hear it.
We can't just say, this is the sliding
okay,
scale.
30 seconds.
Okay.
No,
Alright,
no,
so-
but
this
this
is-
is, we need to adopt the sliding scale as presented as, from the Department of
Yeah,
Education.
so
Right, right,
let
so-
me try.
Okay.
Move to approve the sliding scale for preschool tuition for 2019-2020 as presented, with the understanding that it is based upon the sliding scale chart developed by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, which has also been presented to the committee tonight. You can put them together and you got it.
Sure.
That's the motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Not the most artful motion, I'll grant you.
Did you get that?
Did Aaron
Aaron?
get it?
Yeah.
Can you repeat it?
We'll
for
work
me?
Don't ask me to say that twice.
We'll work it out.
Pay rates.
Yeah, no, and I'll just wrap that part up. Again, we just wanted to be able to provide some examples of concrete. So when people looked at it and said, okay, this is where I'm gonna fall, that's what I owe.
Yeah, no.
That's all it was.
Yeah,
It was,
my thing is, if it's just that bottom piece,
Yeah.
how do people fall into those categories? We need to adopt
no,
that,
understood,
right?
and so that's why I'm looking at the entire EEC's recommendation, which is this. So,
All right.
thank goodness we don't have to do it with kindergarten anymore. Tuition free,
One step at a time.
one step at a time.
Okay, EDP substitutes and ESP hourly substitutes.
Yeah, so Ms. Duran and Ms. Mercant-Smith came and wanted to make sure that we get a little bit closer to the $12, which we're supposed to be at for minimum wage. And so they're just looking to adjust the increase of EDP aides and substitutes and ESP hourly substitutes to $12 an hour. Currently, they're $11 an hour and $11.88 for ESP substitutes. And it's just to fall in line with, as
It's
we're
a
getting
no-
closer to the $15 per hour, but it's 12 is where we need to be.
No brainer.
Well, so I'll just say, so people are informed on it,
Yep.
that we're not subject to the state minimum wage. I'm not saying it's not
Correct,
the right
understood.
thing to do.
Say it again,
Legally,
what?
Right,
legally, we're covered as a government entity by the federal minimum wage, not the state.
Oh,
The
okay.
state is the one that's at $12, the federal is 7.25. So I'm not saying don't do it, I think
Right.
it's the right thing to do.
Right.
I just don't want people to think absolutely it's a
I
minimum
see.
legal requirement.
I apologize.
Okay.
It's not that
Thank
we're
you.
out,
We fall
we're not
under
out of
that?
compliance with anything.
No.
Right,
It's not
exactly.
something that's
Exactly.
forcing our hand, but it's,
What we do know is in Massachusetts, we're not gonna get people for
That's right.
$11.
We need to be competitive,
Yeah,
and that's
right.
the reason, not
Right.
because we're not
Right.
compliant. Okay,
it's the right thing to do.
fair enough. Who's got the
Thank you.
motion?
Okay.
Who's got the motion?
I will move to increase the hourly wage to $12 for education support personnel, hourly substitutes, ESPs, and for Ashland Extended Day Program aides, substitutes, effective January 22nd, 2019.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, excellent, thank you. 2019-2020 school calendar.
Yeah,
update.
as I mentioned, when we did pass the 2 calendars for the next 2 school years, which we are the envy of many districts, by the way, is that we had to make some adjustments. We knew we would for the prom. So I got an email a week ago for next year's prom, and they said, Mr. Adams, we finally got a date, can we adjust the calendar now? So all I'm doing is asking to adjust the calendar. from the May 15th of 2020 to May 8th of 2020.
Sounds good.
Is that changes for all schools or just the high school?
It will change for everyone. That will be that early release.
Okay.
Right, correct.
Yeah.
It's just that movement, and that's why we do it in advance, get people notice that it could change, and it's changed every year. We've adopted a calendar since I've been here. So,
Who wants it?
I will move to revise the 2019 to 2020 school calendar to add an early release day on May 8th, 2020, and eliminate the early release day scheduled for May 15th, 2020.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Excellent, thank you. Administrative items, do we have a superintendent's report this evening?
no, except I'll apologize for the FaceTiming. It was Sam Adams' first concert
First
tonight,
drink? Oh, so
and
his
he
first
couldn't figure
figure
out how to tie his tie.
That's important.
Did you
And,
know
but I
that?
had tied it, and I had put it on his shirt ahead of time, and all I had to do was actually push it up.
That's all I-
Mom,
Did it work?
I don't
You don't
know,
know.
I shut him off, so, but that was the
You'll find
emergency,
out
I
when you get there.
apologize.
Well, I
That
hope
is
it
an
worked
emergency.
for him.
Apparently, it was an emergency,
Yeah.
even though I had already set it up for him. It is what it is. Now, I'll just, really quickly, working on through the budget process still. We hope to, the governor filed his budget today as required by law. We'll be, diving a little more deeply into those numbers over the next couple weeks. Then we have, Mr. Kendall will mention as well, we had a walkthrough today at Mindess with 18 perspective, well, there's a number of people from the same organizations, but
Yeah.
project managers who will be submitting potentially to services
The OPM.
for the
That is-
OPM. And other than that, professional day went well last week, and high school's in midterm, so. Yeah, so Nicole will talk to that, but that's all I have.
Excellent.
You hadn't noticed, huh?
Any warrant approvals, Kathy?
Are we skipping
From the
Paul?
last time.
No,
Oh.
Paul.
No,
I was
we're
gonna
not
say
skipping.
Are we skipping our assistant?
Oh, Paul, I'm sorry.
Superintendent?
Mr.
Kathy.
Adams stole my thunder with the professional development day, so I am all set, thank you.
I'm so sorry, I didn't mean
Okay.
to.
Yes, I do have warrant approvals, Madam Chair.
Let's hear it.
Bet you have a couple.
Just larger numbers, that's all.
So no one could read this,
Just
No,
Wait,
because
just
we
you, Kathy.
voted you as the person.
Only you.
so
Yeah,
I have to report it?
Yeah,
Okay,
Only
got
you.
it. Wow.
you're special.
All right. Between December 11th, 2018 and January 9th, 2019, I, Kathleen Bates, authorized by my signature payables in the amount of $326,895.96. This includes general fund expenses of $205,209.48, revolving expenses of $130,828.96, grant expenses of $15,112.51, meals tax in the amount of $180.60. And finally, I authorized payroll in the amount of $2,105,659.22.
So, there.
Thank you.
So there.
And there was just one, so it was just one from the last time, there's not another
Yeah.
one.
Correct,
That's
nope,
all,
that was
right?
it,
Big space.
Okay.
Just
Okay.
increase the number.
Yeah, I
Excellent.
haven't done anything.
just that.
You
No,
want that?
correct.
Do you
Excellent.
want this?
Please, yep, thank you.
In the
Okay,
back,
thank
please.
you.
Thank you.
Moving on to the minutes of January 9th, 2019. Did anybody have anything there?
I would just recommend that the present absent section be separated out. That's normally how you do it, but you just put absent next to people, but it's all in the present section. Just do it the way
Oh,
you normally have a.
have an absent
Yeah,
section?
Yeah, normally she adds an absent section.
Sure.
Anybody
That
else?
That was
good.
all I noticed.
I didn't notice anything. Anybody? No?
No.
Do we have a motion to approve the minutes of January 9th, 2019?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any gifts and donations this evening?
We have a couple. From Wait to the Senior Week, $15. Lori and Scott Staney, $100 to the CADCA trip for Ms. Hogan. The Ray and Janet Zambudo, $50 to Robotics Club, and Shane Guinea, $150 to Robotics Club as well, for a total of $315.
Excellent,
Great.
thank you. Do we have a motion to accept the gifts and donations?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Committee reports of activities. Nicole, do you want to start?
Sure. So, as you all know, we are in full swing midterms. It's honestly not that bad. My worst one so far was Spanish, which was a practice AP exam, so it was 4 hours.
Oh my gosh.
Whoa.
Yeah, that was a bad one. But Model UN, I believe, is doing a movie after the second midterm of every day. So they have, I think the first day, I don't even know what movies they were, but they have food, pizza, and it's a good thing
Wow.
for people
Yeah.
to relax afterwards.
Excellent.
This Saturday, NHS, we are holding our bowling fundraiser at Bolero in Shrewsbury. So we had a bunch of teams sign up beforehand, and we're just walking around with a jar at the bowling alley and putting up a presentation about suicide prevention. So I'm very excited for that. And Sunday, I have Accepted Eagle Day at BC for the accepted students.
Congrats. That's
Excited.
awesome. Wow.
And I'm preparing for some interviews for some colleges with Dartmouth and Tufts. And yeah, life's just going.
Excellent.
Excellent.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Awesome.
That's
Yeah.
exciting.
Not too much. As Jim mentioned, we had the walkthrough with the OPMs today, so it was better attended than I expected. Like Jim said, there was probably multiples in there, and I think there were some couple designers as well that wanted to check things out and get an early look. But yeah, along with you, we attended the Board of Selectmen meeting last week, where Michael and Brittany kind of gave a preview of the FY 2020 budget, and yeah, that's about it. Not too much.
Thank you.
None.
Busy mommy and working.
And being sick, yeah. Sorry.
You too.
Yeah.
I got sick like an hour before the meeting last time.
Oh,
and was waffling. I was texting with Paul. I was waffling between the ER
Oh, no.
and here.
Oh, my.
Good
So,
you didn't come
Good
see.
choice.
yeah. No, it wasn't anything contagious. But,
Kathy?
Oh, yeah, I just have a couple things. So Paul Vier, thank you for inviting us to the Professional Development Day that you scheduled for our teachers and our staff. So I really liked all the choices that we could pick from. And I went to the one Twitter one with Jordan Hoffman, right? From Natick. She's an elementary school principal. She was great. So that was really valuable for me. And so I did my first tweet that day. But I appreciate us being able to see what our staff, our teachers go through. So that was nice. And then I did want to give a shout out. The reason why I wasn't here at our last school committee meeting was because our wrestling team had put on a Coaches versus Cancer event. And so our varsity head coach, Pete Zakili, was instrumental in this. He had this idea to bring the two communities together, Hopkinton wrestling team and Ashland's Ashland's wrestling team. And so they came together, and it was funny because like we're rivals, obviously, but that night the rival was cancer, and it was a fundraiser for the American Cancer Society. So everything raised went to the American Cancer Society. So Pete did a great job. He worked with the Hopkinton wrestling manager, Jesse Carner, and their head coach, Tim Nelson. So it was a joint effort, and there was a lot of community involvement and parents involvement. But it was a great event. So many people attended. It was huge. So they raised $3,014, all going to American Cancer Society.
Can I
Yeah.
follow up on that?
Sure.
Because some hot off the press today.
Tell us, Jim.
Good afternoon, Stephen. Hope all is well at Ashland High School. One of my areas of focus at the MIA is the MIA Educational Athletics Achievement Award, which I travel to schools to recognize student athletes, coaches, or teams for outstanding acts or initiatives in relation to one or more of the 5 MIAA educational athletics pillars. I read on Twitter that Ashland High School and Hopkinton High School recently participated in a Coaches versus Cancer wrestling match, a heartwarming initiative. With your permission, I would like to travel to Ashland High School sometime going forward and present the wrestling team with an MIAA Educational Athletics Achievement Award for community service.
Wow.
That is
Rich
awesome.
Riley from the MIA.
Wow. Oh,
just
yes.
today.
Yeah.
Perfect timing.
Awesome,
Yeah,
great
so-
segue.
That's
but
Yeah.
great.
It really was this
Yeah.
huge event. It was really a great community. It was awesome. So I'm sorry I wasn't here, but I was really happy to be there and supporting that. So.
Sounds like you made a good choice.
Yeah. Thanks.
I had best laid plans to go to a lot of these things, including professional development day with the teachers, and was really looking forward to see how that worked. And unfortunately, my day job got in the way of all that last week, so I really don't have
Those day
anything to
jobs,
report.
right?
Yeah, those day jobs.
Yeah, I just have ditto to a couple of the things that were said, but I would like to say again, thank you to Dr. Vieira for putting on a great professional development day, and I think it's really great for us to see how some of the ideas and our vision and our values that we talk about here are being discussed with the teaching staff and the rest of our staff, and I attended a couple programs and they were both fantastic. So thank you for that invitation, and thank you for a great job. Well done. And also with Paul, I attended the Board of Selectmen meeting last week. I answered some questions about where we're at in our
Thanks for
budget
going.
process.
Yeah.
And, we still have more work to do and more information to gather, and hopefully we will continue the discussions with the other boards as we learn more about the state budget and how it works with our budget. But the communication has been great all along, and it continues to be, so we thank everybody for that. And that's it.
Excellent.
All right.
To-do list.
To-do list, yeah.
All right.
Action
Action
items.
I'd like to add a couple to it.
All right, let's do it.
The public budget presentation, as required by law, I'd like to have on February 27th. So we need to publicize it in the paper as well. So I think we'll be ready by then. We'll have been able to really cipher through the governor's budget, but also some meetings with the town manager will occur during this time period, so.
We wouldn't expect the Senate budget until April, probably.
Yeah,
right? April,
probably,
May?
correct,
Yeah, okay.
right. It'll be a while, so those will be the conversations we have to have in terms of how comfortable do we feel with the numbers that are being presented currently in the House, or in the governor's budget.
Right, and isn't like there still can be movement throughout
There'll be
the
lots of
summer?
movement.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
even-
July 1, or typically the first week of July is when it's finally approved. And then that's why we make those adjustments at fall town meeting, with the budget approved at May town meeting, and then the governor's, or the final approved budget in July is when we reconcile things, if you will. But my intention is to have the executive summary prepared for February 14th, and then have a budget presentation to the community on the 27th. I just wanted that on there as well.
And same date, it looks like we're still planning the Mindess academic study update on that same date?
Correct.
Okay.
And one thing I've started is that I am emailing the community now, the agendas to the school committee meetings, and with some brief descriptions of if there are areas of really concern, and I use this as an example. This is a next conversation with the presentation of the Mindess academic study and update. So I just think it's I heard that loud and clear as well.
Yeah, okay.
So
Yeah. Well,
something we
seems
hadn't
like a
done.
great idea.
We tend to email them to teachers
Right.
and to faculty, but I don't always do it to the community. And I think now I will continue to do that as we set the agendas.
Could I potentially, I don't think it's really an action item necessarily for our meetings, but just given what the governor's proposed, in terms of Chapter 70 funding, it would seem to me that it's appropriate for, at least, Lori, for you as the chair, to reach out to the MASC to see what they're doing to support it. I don't know, if this is one of those things where some districts get a good result and some get a bad one, which often puts them in a difficult spot, but obviously from Ashland's perspective, what's been proposed would be tremendous.
Right.
And so I guess I don't know that it has to happen immediately. I think it's appropriate to take time to digest it, but on behalf of the committee, it would seem appropriate to make a couple phone calls or send a few emails
Sure, I can do
seeking
that.
support, and then also doing the same for with our senator and state rep.
Yes, I already have a meeting scheduled with
Okay.
Pooja Mehta, who's Senator Spilka's, she works with her. And I will have a chance to ask her more about what's going on that end.
One of the things with the Chapter 70 in years past is that every district has been given at least something, right? So it may have been $25. Right now, within the budget, I believe it's been set at $20. So every district will have a $20 per pupil increase, depending upon where they fall within the Chapter 70. We traditionally have gotten $25 or $50 whenever they've adjusted it. So it'll be interesting. It certainly will to see the modifications that the governor has made to the foundation building review recommendations. So, we'll know more tomorrow.
Nothing else, we can have a
Well,
motion.
so we
Do you
didn't,
wanna add
something?
we
Read the
didn't
other
actually go
ones.
through the.
I
didn't
know.
go through 'em, I
We
just
went
added
right to
to
the
it.
bottom, you went,
I added
and then
one.
I started
Oh,
moving
they
up
were
from the
adding
bottom.
things,
Yeah, right.
District fees, summer, everything's for the summer, district fees, athletic fee structure,
Nothing to do.
discussion of Columbus Day, calendar holidays. Is that?
That's the continual, the
That's what Frank
conversation.
always has to
They
check
both,
around
3 and 4 go
actually.
together, calendar
Oh,
holidays and Columbus Day, et cetera.
Columbus Day, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
they all go
That's
together.
the summer
Okay.
How we
WACA.
want to represent
Sure.
certain holidays on the calendars, et
Right.
cetera.
Does anybody have anything else they want to add to this list? Other than what Jim had suggested already? Now?
Can we maybe start looking at an electronic payment system?
A what?
An electronic payment system for
For what?
So things like field trips and like to be able to PayPal or Venmo or something.
We can have that conversation with Barbara. Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
that's something I'd like to look at.
Yep.
All right.
And we're doing it for
Electronic payment
athletics right now, so.
Oh, we are?
Yep.
Do we just use the student ID number?
I believe so. Yeah, we have, it's called First Student, no, not First Student. Family ID.
ID.
So, yeah, so we only want to collect online. So,
Okay.
Yeah,
I think,
we are doing it, yep.
I think that'd be a big step for us.
Yep.
And then also maybe like looking at paperless for some things.
Mhm.
Like if we can, like, do we know, can we add fields in iPass or do we have flex fields that we can use in iPass to be able to assign? Like, so if there's a field that's not being used, can we assign it as like an opt-in or an opt-out? So if you're an opt-in family for digital,
Right.
you're never gonna get paper in those
There's,
folders and that you can,
that's a much bigger discussion in terms of whether we want to stay with iPass or not. So let's
okay.
shelve that, and that's a,
Before we add.
that's a
comments to it.
$250,000
Does that go on the
conversation.
bottom of the list?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Review IBAS?
That's on your list.
that's on my list, believe me.
Okay.
Very expensive.
Okay,
Right.
now,
I move that we adjourn the meeting.
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.